Hey guys, I was going to do a really quirky title and say strange, like I said in some other videos, like greetings, earthlings, or something like that. I'm out of breath already because I just walked up the stairs. I did quite a good walk. I normally used to walk anyway since I was quite young, because when I was in PE at school, one of the teacher at high school said walking's one of the best exercises. So ever since he said that, I always try and do a lot of walking. So even when I was a teenager, like since I was like 13 or 14 or something like that, like 15 or no, I think I was about 13 or 14, something like that. So I walked for miles. So today I walked probably 2 or 3 miles to the library. I got some refreshments and stuff like that, quite a lot of tea and biscuits and all that, which I had. And I used my login time. So I don't know why I put in speech marks, but anyway, you're allowed up to 3 hours a day, except for Sunday. So I used my 3 hours, and then my friend kindly let me borrow his. So I had about 6 hours on the computer today. Anyway, I was going to do a really quirky title, like saying greetings, earthlings, and talking about pretending that there's been alien invasion or something weird like that, but I decided not to. Anywho, I thought I'd talk about, because here in the UK there's an election next week. Thanks, John Bobbitt, for the comments. Thanks again, John. So there's an election next week, UK general election. Don't think I'll be voting because I think I'll be in the library having tea. But I suppose I do my own sort of political stuff, because really everything we do, I've talked about before, is like through the politics of all the work I try and do to help people in Africa and Asia and places like that, the Native Americans, Indigenous people, and try and work on rights for Indigenous people and what I call the four, and technology for Africa, and STEM for Africa, and science for Asia, and stuff like that. Tourism, supporting tourism in Asia and Africa, and Indigenous centres. I've been to an Aborigine centre when I was in Australia myself, so I'd encourage people to go, where you learn about their culture a bit and all that. Not that much, but you learn something anyway. You can speak to Indigenous people, Aboriginal people, so that's pretty cool. So I recommend people do that. But yeah, so the stuff I do anyway is kind of political. Anyway, so I think I've been waffling enough. And I put another long title in, I know, so I didn't quite manage to fit it in. But yes, I think that's been quite long enough intro, talking about my day and all that, what sort of things I've been up to. So I went to the library. I went online for about 6 hours using the login time to write to my friends about my political ambition or ideas or goals or dreams, and try and hopefully get what their opinions about what they think and things like that. Also, I like to support YouTubers from like people of colour, ethnic minorities, or YouTubers who are people of colour, ethnic minorities, and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's basically what I've been up to today. And I did a little bit of writing, but not that much. So I got up as soon as I could, and I went to the library. Anywho, sorry, that was a long intro. So try and keep the video a bit short. So I haven't thought hugely about my policy ideas, but I thought if I'm not sure how serious to keep this video. Obviously, I don't, like I say, Prime Minister of the Universe or President of the Universe, and I thought maybe one day, like on Fridays, which I say Fun Fridays, I might have a joke list with some of my jokes, like saying I want ban weddings or ban marriage or stuff like that. I said to my dad once, like, if I was Prime Minister, or when I'm Prime Minister of the Universe or President of the Universe, I'm going to ban weddings. And my dad laughed. He said there's no such thing. And to be honest, my dad's more of a socialist, and I'm like, as I've talked about before, I'm quite a libertarian. So I hope this list is not going to be too long, and I hope I can think of some ideas, potential policy ideas. I even think of like somewhere I talk about my imaginations, and that kind of thing. So, but anyway, I know I've been waffling, so I hope people will watch this video and bear with me and all that. This is part one of 3 parts, which I hope to do my go back to my usual list form. So if you don't like this is probably not going to be a video for you, but I have done some which are not not in list form, which you might like, some about football and things like that. But yeah, so to be honest, I've never seen an actual political manifesto, so I think it'd be interesting if I could read a political manifesto and see what it looks like, if I had the patience. I don't really like reading much, and if there was a YouTube video where a politician talked about their manifesto, I don't know if I'd watch that. But yeah, so I'll start off with the list anyway. So point one, I'd like to look at how I can support African technology, which I've talked about before, and encourage big companies to invest in African tech, and possibly with the international community get encourage tax benefits for investing in African tech and things like that. Point number two, I hope to bring a group together to talk about whether we should form a political party. I call it the MKSP International, which stands for Michael Covington Political Party Internationally. And like obviously the name suggests, being international and that sort of thing. Or whether we should just be a lobby group which lobbies for things we agree with and like brings together indigenous people and talks about indigenous rights, or African nations working together and things like that. Like what I talked about before, what I call the four like indigenous people from Australasia or Oceania, if you prefer to call that, and Africa, the Americas, and Asia, like working together and lobbying together for their rights and things like that. Point number three, I hope to work on like libertarian ideals mainly. To be honest, this is not going to be popular for everyone, but if I'm absolutely honest, like even though I've been unemployed for so long, I know this is a bit sort of strange of me, a bit another one of my quirky things, but I hope to look at like more charity and less taxes, more giving people a choice of what they want to do with their money and their body, to have the lowest possible tax. So I hope to find, as I've talked about before, I know, but so apologies if I'm repeating myself, and I hope I'm not being boring as I say or anything like that, but to talk about more libertarian ways or free choice ways to for people to help the poor, rather than forcing them to help the poor. So yeah, looking more at charity and more free choice rather than the government telling you what to do. Less regulation, less government, less state, and things like that. I know that's not always going to be popular, like, but I still want to help homeless people or poor people, disabled people, and all that, as I've talked about before. But so once again, sorry, apologies if I'm repeating a lot of those points. But point number four, I hope to like I've talked about before. I know when I think about it now that I remember, like I vaguely remember mentioning these points before, but like taxing the weapons industry, like having a 10% tax on the weapons industry, making it as hard as possible to profit from war, financially profit from war, and all that, making it as hard as possible. Taxing wars if we can, like either making it illegal to lobby for war, or if you lobby for war, your profits would be taxed so high that and I think that would make a lot of peace. I'm not a scholar or I'm not a biblical scholar or whatever, but I'm not sure what Christians would think about this one, but I think it's like biblical teaching about swords into plowshares, which I've heard of, which where countries will where countries won't be where countries will grow things instead of using violence. So I think it'd be better to encourage people to invest in water, food, shelter, and helping people with medical stuff rather than wars. I think it'd be better if we tried to cut wars, which I think are based on human greed. So I'd love to have a tax and make it difficult to profit from war, which I think would help a lot of poor people. I forgot to mention in point three, I'd also love to have more choice of people of the taxes people do pay. I'd love to have more choice about where their money goes. And as I say, taxing the weapons trade 10% of their profits or their revenue. I think even of their maybe of their profits and all that, but maybe have a group that can look at what's a fair tax for the weapons trade, so that that can be used rather than taxing individuals or even businesses, and just having the least possible taxes. Maybe I'm a bit naive, but I'd love to get rid of like corporation tax or VAT and things like that. I don't know if that's possible, but yeah, tax like the wars, the weapons trade, the military industrial complex, possibly even the royal family and things like that. I'm not sure about that one, but I mean, that's a controversial idea. But yeah, so and I'd also have tax cuts for things like healthy food or things that are more environmentally friendly. So it would be tax incentives to allow tax cuts for certain ethical products or services and things like that. Point number 5, I hope to listen more to other people's ideas as well if I can. Obviously, I'm not always going to agree with every idea. Obviously, that wouldn't be possible anyway, but I know it'd be hard to change my mind from like my libertarian views and allow more free choice. So, but I hope to listen to all ideas as best as possible. Again, I might not agree with them all, but I hope to accept that people have difference of opinion. So yeah, I think that's point number 5. Point number 6, as I say, I hope to network with other people and form a group. I call it the MKS network for like, I'm not sure what exact name I'll call it, but it's a network that I wish to create for divorced countries or separated countries, divided countries, whatever you want to call them. So countries that have been separated. For instance, Ireland, which was separated into Northern and Southern Ireland, or the Republic of Ireland. So I'd love to have an island which has been split in two as part of that network, and possibly like countries like South Korea, China, India, Argentina, and all those sorts of countries working together politically and that sort of thing. Yeah, so I hope to network those countries that have been split up into different countries. So it sort of is a quirky sort of way to make up for the fact they were split up, which has often caused problems for those countries. Again, sorry if I repeated a lot of these points or haven't thought them through as well as, or planned them out or explained them as well as I would have hoped. Point number 7, possibly listening to Christian and other and minority groups about religious freedoms and rights around the world. Dare I say, although I'm not holier than thou, as I often say, in spite of my sins, I hope God will guide me to do positive things. Not sure if I should say the right thing, if you like, but anyway, positive things. 8, I hope to do stuff about positive politics, where I talk more about, if I made a party, I talk more about what I would do in a positive way, or how I would make the world a better place. I wouldn't necessarily talk about what's wrong with the other political party or political parties, which a lot of people complain about. Like you often hear Conservatives or the Lib Dems or Labour, or in America, Democrats or Republicans or whatever the parties, bashing each other's policies rather than talking about what good things they're going to do, which annoys a lot of people. I also think, like, especially in British politics, actually American politics probably more, but they shout each other down, and they're quite a lot like children. And I can probably already speak about that, but they're a lot like children when they slag each other off or they shout at each other rather than actually talking about what they're going to do to make things better or how they can help people or whatever. So yeah, in House of Parliaments they just shout at each other and have rowdy behaviour and all that, and they don't really behave themselves well. And so I think it'd be better to have more positive, cleaned up type of politics, and also to challenge hate groups and things like that. People of colour working together, talking about how we can de-radicalise people as well, and fund de-radicalisation programs in places like Iraq or Tunisia or all over Asia and Africa and places like that, especially like Arabic countries, or even places like Pakistan and all that sort of thing. So, and I'd love to support groups in Pakistan and India that want to see more unity between the countries rather than division, and any group that supports Pan-Africanism or Pan-Asianism and things like that. And also, as I talked about before, the 4, which are like, as I've mentioned before, like Australasians or Aborigines, Africans, Indigenous Africans, Native American, Indigenous Native Americans, and people from Asia working together, and all the nations from those, all the African nations, for instance, working together, and also with Indigenous communities and working on how they can get their rights, including representation at the UN and other international bodies. 9, I hope to look at like red line issues, like the main priorities, like list a lot of my goals and somehow try to prioritize. Again, I hope to work on political ideas like every Thursday or maybe even every day. certainly at least once a week, hopefully, and possibly every day, or as often as possible, just like I hope to do with my writing generally and things like that. And point 10, I hope to, one of my dreams I've talked about before. Again, sorry if I'm repeating a lot of these points, or I forgot a lot of them, and with my memory I've repeated a lot of them, but yeah, I know I've talked about repeating points, so that like if they're really important to you, you repeat them, so they stick in people's heads. Like Bill Gates, when he was building Microsoft, probably repeated about getting a computer on every desk over every day, probably for such amount of time, and focused on that with a relentless dedication. So I think there is something to be said for that, I suppose. But yeah, I'd love to support the 10% poorest people in every possible country, and also young people around the world somehow. But I hope to do so not by raising taxes, but by cutting waste, by giving people more choices somehow, as much as possible. And I'm hoping I can find some creative ways to even cut people's taxes rather than increase them, but also at the same time still help homeless people and generally poor people. As I say, the poorest 10% of each country, and I hope to build homes across places like India and Iraq, South Africa, and places like that, rebuild Iraq and South Africa and places like that where homes have been destroyed, including countries like Syria, and look at how we can fundraise to build more homes there for people, and just generally around the world as well. And things like having water instead of war, and little slogans like that. So anyway, I hope this video made some sense and I didn't waffle on too much and I wasn't speaking too fast. I hope I managed to somehow make my points articulately, and as I hope someone out there enjoyed this video. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it, and thanks for any of your support. Please look out for part 2 and 3 if you would. I really appreciate it, and please let me know what you think, or what would you do if you were Prime Minister for a day or stuff like that, or for a year rather. Probably a day can't make that much difference, but what would you change about the world or politics or stuff like that? Yeah, I was thinking of writing, but I decided to upload a video. But yeah, I hope it wasn't too crazy. Peace and love.